In the middle of September 1916, the Western Front on the Somme exuded menace. Beneath the smoke and dust that hovered by day and the crackling cacophony of sounds and flashes at night, there existed a devastated landscape that opposing armies were unable to cross. On the British Army's blackest day here, 57,470 men perished. 32 of its 129 fighting battalions lost more than 500 men each. The Somme encapsulated the stalemate of 2 lost years. Casualties rose to 90,000 at the end of the first month and reached 1.2 million by November. Soldiers gathering in the assembly areas prior to the next flurry of activity instinctively appreciated that they would not live long. 2 months after the start of the battle, the weather remained very warm. One soldier recalled being in the wagon lines of the logistic and assembly area before going up the line. There were quite a few of us, he remembered, and somebody came along and said, "The war's finished." "Oh," was the response. "Just go down about half a mile and look in the field there and you'll see." He wouldn't tell us why. Anyway, we went down and there was quite a crowd there, and there were tanks. Things we had never seen or heard of. They were viewing a metal monolith that defied description. Infantryman Ernest Ford, aged 20, saw what looked like armor-plated cars with caterpillar tracks. Tanks, as we later discovered. Robbie Burns, a 7th Cameron Highlander, enduring shell fire in his trench, heard this brrr and thought, what on earth is that noise? It got louder and louder. He and his men clambered up onto the parapet, as did the Germans opposite, and watched it go by with 5 or 6 soldiers crowded behind, sheltering with fixed bayonets. We didn't know what they were for. Perhaps for taking down barbed wire, we thought. 20-year-old Norman Dillon's battalion of the 14th Northumberland Fusiliers was awaiting the call forward to attack the village of Flers. It was a stinking night, he recalled, with shell fire, including gas, whooshing overhead, when, in front of him and his sergeant, a queer object crawled over the mud, and there it was, the first tank in action. H.G. Wells had written a science fiction account about the land ironclads, which appeared in the Strand magazine in England in 1903. The Time Machine in 1895 and The Invisible Man in 1897 had already established him as the master of the science fiction genre. He described fighting machines 80 to 100 feet long, with portholes through which semi-automatic rifles were fired. There were no big guns or machine guns, and despite the invention of the spark ignition engine by Gottlieb Daimler in 1885, Wells's 10-foot diameter wheels, protected by a steel skirt, were driven by steam.